Stories Philippines Podcast.
There are places where the echo of history is not just heard, but felt. Sometimes a chill runs through a crowd and no one can say why. Sometimes the lights flicker in a stadium built for pride and pageantry, and you wonder if the darkness is trying to speak. Imagine standing beneath the vast, time-worn arches of an old sports coliseum at night. Your footsteps ring hollow on concrete that has seen not only triumph and celebration, but also terror, loss, and the secret nightmares of a nation. You feel the weight of thousands who have cheered and screamed here. But when the cheers fade, what remains? What if beneath the national pride, the fluttering flags, and the echoing roars, there is a shadow that cannot be banished by the floodlights? What if, as the Southeast Asian Games approach, victory itself is haunted by something older and darker than any contest? If you listen closely, you might hear it. The whisper of restless spirits, the crack of a distant ball, the gasp of an athlete who glimpses something impossible in the reflection of the stadium's ancient glass. They say the Rizal Memorial Coliseum is cursed, and tonight, as the world's eyes turn to Manila, we descend into its haunted heart. Please be aware that tonight's story is not for the faint of heart. Shadows move here, and some tales may linger long after the episode ends. This darkness permeates this episode, touching on scenes and themes some may find deeply unsettling. Listener discretion is a necessity. I am Jessica, and you are listening to Stories Philippines Podcast. This is Season 4, Episode 7, The Cursed Stadium, Ghosts of the Rizal Memorial Coliseum. If you find yourself holding your breath as this story unfolds, remember, you're not alone. Submit your own stories to our email at storiesphpodcast@gmail.com. Find show notes and support options in the description. Dive deeper with exclusive content on Patreon, and follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. There's always more to the story than meets the eye. The Rizal Memorial Sports Complex stands as a monument to Filipino ambition, resilience, and the price of glory. Built in the 1930s, it was Manila's answer to the world's great sporting arenas, a beacon of modernity and national pride, with its elegant Art Deco lines and sweeping stadiums. But beneath its proud exterior, the land itself remembers a different story. Long before the complex rose, this ground was a crossroads, a place of trade, of conflict, and many say, of mass graves. The Spanish era brought violence and hidden burials. The Japanese occupation saw the ground soaked in the blood of innocents and soldiers alike. As the Battle of Manila turned entire districts into graveyards, survivors whispered that the land had become a tomb, and that the dead were not at rest. This grim history of a contested city, where lives were suddenly extinguished and bodies quickly interred, finds strange parallels in other parts of the world. Think of the ancient Roman arenas, built over conquered lands where countless lives were lost in battle and spectacle. The very foundations of celebrated places are often laid upon layers of forgotten human suffering. When the Colosseum opened its doors, it was with a mixture of hope and unease. The grandeur of the building could not quite mask the sense that something lingered here. The first athletes to train within its walls told stories of cold spots that would not fade, of strange noises echoing after midnight, of fleeting shadows darting across empty seats. Maintenance workers joked nervously about the old spirits of the place, but no one laughed when the lights failed during a key match, or when an athlete collapsed, shivering, after swearing she'd seen someone watching her from a locked storeroom. This early resistance of the place to simple celebration is a common theme in international folklore. A belief that spirits of the ground must be placated before any new construction can truly take hold. In many cultures, the disturbance of old graves is said to invite misfortune, a debt of reverence the living must always pay. The approach of the 2005 Southeast Asian Games brought new energy and new dread. For weeks, athletes from across the country gathered at Rizal Memorial to prepare for the greatest sporting event Manila had hosted in a generation. The stadium was scrubbed and polished, but even fresh paint could not erase the feeling of being watched. Coaches reported a string of minor accidents, sprained ankles, sudden fevers, equipment sabotaged by unseen hands. Some whispered that the Coliseum itself was resisting the coming celebration, as if jealous of the living who dared to claim its stage. One night, as the wind howled through the empty corridors, a young runner named Carlo was practicing sprints along the dimly lit track. He was alone, or so he thought. As he rounded the far bend, he felt a sudden biting chill. His breath fogged in the air, and for a moment, the world seemed to tilt. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a figure, a man in an old military uniform, his face pale and eyes hollow. The apparition vanished as quickly as it appeared, but Carlo's legs turned to lead. He stumbled, falling hard on the track. When his coach found him minutes later, Carlo was shivering uncontrollably, unable to speak of what he'd seen. That night, he developed a high fever and was pulled from the games. Stories like Carlo's spread quickly, each one adding a new thread to the tapestry of fear. The soldier in uniform is an archetype of the war haunting, a specter bound by duty and violent death, a figure seen in battlefields and old military hospitals across the globe. Listener submissions echo these tales. One story, sent by a former volleyball player, describes a late-night practice session in the cavernous main hall. The team was running drills when the lights began to flicker. A teammate named Erica stopped mid-serve, her eyes wide with terror. She pointed to the upper balcony, where a pale woman in white stood motionless, watching the team. The woman's hair hung over her face. When the coach went to investigate, the balcony was empty. But for weeks afterward, team members reported waking at night to the sound of heavy footsteps and the feeling of invisible hands tugging at their blankets. This white lady, or Dama de Blanco, is a pervasive figure in Filipino folklore, often a spirit of a woman who died tragically and whose sorrow is so profound it clings to the living. This archetype of the weeping woman is a global phenomenon, from the La Llorona of Latin America to the Banshee of the Celtic world, a spirit whose presence foretells grief. Another listener, a maintenance worker named Paolo, recalls sweeping the empty stands after a boxing match. The stadium should have been deserted, but as he worked, he heard the faint sound of children laughing, echoing up from the tunnels beneath the Coliseum. When he went to check, he found only darkness and the slow drip of water from the ancient pipes. Yet every night, the laughter returned, sometimes joined by the muffled cries of men in pain, as if the past refused to let go. The sound of spectral children at play, a painful contrast to the darkness they inhabit, speaks to a collective trauma. During the Japanese occupation, children were often caught in the crossfire or killed in raids. The sound of their innocent laughter becomes a haunting echo of lost futures, a common manifestation of deep historical pain that is often described in war-torn regions worldwide. These stories are not unique to Manila. Across the world, stadiums built on sites of tragedy often become magnets for ghostly phenomena. In London, the Olympic site was rumored to be haunted by the restless dead of wartime bombings. In Chicago, the old Soldier Field was said to echo with the voices of those lost to violence and disaster. The pattern is clear. When places of celebration are built atop fields of sorrow, the two histories can never quite be separated. The very grandiosity of these structures seems to amplify the hidden sorrow of the land, turning great halls into echo chambers for the past. The Rizal Memorial Coliseum's architecture adds to its otherworldly aura. Designed in the streamlined Art Deco style, its soaring arches and vast halls create pockets of shadow and silence. The echo of footsteps lingers long after the walker has passed. The scent of old concrete and sweat hangs heavy in the air, mixed with something older, something like earth freshly turned after rain or the metallic tang of old blood. At night, The stadium breathes with a life of its own. The wind rattles the windows and the distant hum of traffic fades, replaced by the indistinct murmur of unseen crowds. This feeling of an old building having its own oppressive atmosphere can often be explained by something called the infrasound theory, where low-frequency vibrations, inaudible to the human ear, can cause feelings of dread, panic, and even visual disturbances, leading the mind to interpret the inexplicable feeling as a spectral presence. Folklore has always flourished in places like this. The Filipino belief in spirits, both benevolent and vengeful, runs deep, older than the city itself. The restless souls of those denied proper burial are said to drift through the world, seeking peace or vengeance. The Colosseum, with its history of violence and ambition, is a perfect vessel for such tales. The earthbound soul, or Kaluluwang Ligao, is a spirit whose connection to the physical world is too strong to allow it to pass on. A figure known in various forms around the world, from the Japanese Yurei to the Middle Eastern Jinn. The White Lady who haunts the upper balcony echoes the stories told in countless towns and cities, where women wronged or lost to tragedy return to watch over the living. The laughing children in the tunnels call to mind the countless innocents lost during the Japanese occupation, their playfulness now a mournful reminder of what was taken. The soldier seen by Carlo is a specter of the war that shattered Manila, a reminder that the wounds of history do not heal easily. During the preparations for the SEA Games, these legends took on new life. Athletes whispered about a curse, that those who disrespected the spirits of the Colosseum would suffer defeat or injury. Some teams brought offerings of flowers or coins, leaving them in the shadowed corners of the stadium before dawn. A few even sought the help of local priests or albalarjos, hoping to appease whatever forces lingered in the darkness. This practice of offering to spirits of the place, or chthonic deities, is a near-universal tradition, a tacit recognition that the ground itself has a memory that must be respected. The fear of bad luck attached to curses reflects a deep-seated human need to find an external cause for misfortune, a way to rationalize a sudden failure or injury. One coach, skeptical of such tales, laughed off the stories, until his star gymnast was found unconscious in the locker room, her face pale and her pulse slow. She claimed to have seen an old woman standing in the shower, weeping softly. The team withdrew from the competition, and the coach began to leave small offerings of food and water in the corners of the gym. This sudden shift from skepticism to reverence speaks to the power of a traumatic, shared experience, a moment where the purely rational mind is forced to confront something that defies simple explanation. Folk healers were sometimes called to cleanse the Colosseum, sprinkling salt and holy water, reciting prayers in a blend of Spanish, Latin, and the old languages of the archipelago. They spoke of earthbound souls, spirits trapped by unfinished business or violent ends. Some claimed to see the shadows move, to hear voices whispering in forgotten tongues. The rituals brought brief relief, but the stories never truly faded. In many religious traditions, the earth itself can be considered corrupted by violence, and rituals like these are attempts to purify the physical space and help the departed find rest, a kind of spiritual remediation. Modern approaches often attempt to dissect the fear itself. The intense pressure of a major competition can lead to a phenomenon known as mass hysteria, or collective psychogenic illness, where anxiety and suggestion spread through a closely knit group, manifesting as physical symptoms like fevers, dizziness, or even shared visual hallucinations. An athlete under tremendous stress might misinterpret a trick of the light or a common noise, and then, due to the existing folklore, the story is quickly validated and accepted by others who are equally stressed and primed for fear. Yet, it remains an open question whether the mind creates the ghost or whether the ghost merely takes advantage of the mind's vulnerability. Religious understanding of these hauntings is varied. In the Catholic tradition, prevalent in the Philippines, restless spirits are often seen as souls in purgatory, trapped between worlds due to unconfessed sins or a sudden violent death, and they seek the prayers of the living to help them move on. Priests have been known to bless the stadium before major events, sprinkling holy water along the track and in the locker rooms. Some athletes carry rosaries or small amulets for protection, tucking them into their uniforms before stepping onto the field, an act of faith that seeks to establish a spiritual barrier between the individual and the oppressive darkness. This belief offers a framework for understanding and dealing with the fear, transforming a paralyzing ghost into a soul in need of mercy. The stories do not end with the games, nor are they confined to the past. Even today, athletes and staff report strange encounters. In a recent listener submission, a basketball player named Miguel describes hearing his name whispered in an empty hallway, the voice unmistakably his late grandfather's. Another recounts seeing rows of empty seats suddenly filled with shadowy figures, their faces blank and unreadable. This feeling of being called by a familiar voice when no one is present is a classic auditory hallucination. But when it is tied to a specific, emotionally charged place, it takes on a more potent, spiritual meaning, suggesting a continued connection between the living and the dead. During one especially intense training session in the weeks before the SEA Games, a swimmer named Daniel found himself alone in the pool after hours. The water was calm, the lights dim. As he finished his laps, he felt something brush past his leg, a cold, clammy touch that did not belong. He surfaced, gasping, and saw a pale figure standing at the edge of the pool, watching him with empty eyes. Daniel refused to train alone again, and his teammates began to leave offerings at the poolside each morning. The chilling touch in the water is a recurring motif in stories of drowned spirits, a stark reminder that the boundaries of life and death are especially thin in places that involve the elements. It is not only the athletes who feel the presence of the past. Groundskeepers tell of tools that go missing, only to reappear in strange places. Security guards report seeing doors open and close on their own, hearing the faint strains of music from long-abandoned speakers. One night, a guard named Liza found herself locked in the main hall, unable to open the doors until she recited the Lord's Prayer aloud. When she was finally freed, she swore she'd heard a voice whisper, "Thank you," before the silence returned. The disembodied voice thanking her suggests that the spirits are not always malevolent, but sometimes desperate for assistance, trapped in a loop of their final moments. The Rizal Memorial Coliseum is not unique in its haunted history, but it is singular in the intensity of its stories. The land beneath it is layered with memory, of triumph, of love, of unimaginable loss. Each new generation adds its own chapter, its own encounter with the inexplicable. Some come seeking victory, others hoping to escape the past, but all must reckon with the shadows that linger here. The way the complex intertwines national aspiration with deep historical tragedy creates a unique magnetic field for the uncanny, a space where the weight of the past is too heavy for the present to bear alone. The SEA Games are meant to unite nations in friendly competition, to celebrate the best of what humanity can achieve. Yet beneath the surface, there is always the risk that the old wounds will reopen, that the dead will demand their due. The Colosseum stands as both a beacon and a warning, a reminder that pride and ambition can never fully erase the darkness that came before. It is a lesson in humility, a monumental reminder that no matter how brightly the floodlights shine, the earth beneath our feet holds secrets older and deeper than any modern glory. As the opening ceremony approaches, the city hums with excitement. Flags fly from every window and the streets are alive with music and laughter. But in the quiet moments, when the crowds have gone and the stadium is empty, the old fears return. Some say the spirits grow restless when ignored, that they crave recognition as much as any champion. If you ever find yourself walking the halls of the Rizal Memorial at night, listen closely. You may hear the distant sound of applause, the echo of a game long forgotten. Or you may feel the brush of a cold hand on your shoulder, a reminder that in places like this, the past is never truly gone. What is it about places of glory that attracts so much sorrow? Is it the longing for greatness, the hunger for immortality that draws the dead to the living? Or is it something older, something woven into the very fabric of the land, waiting for its moment to rise? The confluence of high-stakes human emotion, the extreme joy of victory, the crushing despair of defeat, may act as a psychological lightning rod, making the emotional history of the place more accessible or more potent. The stories continue to arrive, each one a testament to the enduring power of belief and to the fear that some things are better left undisturbed. A coach writes of losing his voice before a crucial match, only to find it returned after leaving a candle at the old memorial. A young gymnast swears she was pushed from the balance beam by unseen hands, only to land softly as if cushioned by invisible arms. A team manager hears his name called by a voice he last heard as a child, urging him to remember a promise made long ago. The ambiguity of these events, was it a curse or a blessing, a trick of the mind or a true encounter, is what allows the folklore to persist, thriving in the uncertainty of the human experience. Through it all, the city endures, the Colosseum endures, the games go on, and the living do their best to honor the past without being consumed by it. But the question remains, who really owns this place? The winners, whose names are etched in gold? The crowds whose cheers fill the night? Or the silent, watching dead, whose stories will never be told in the record books, but who linger in every shadow, every echo, every shiver that runs down your spine? The true ownership of any contested ground may belong to those who suffered upon it, their claim secured by the sheer weight of their forgotten history. Tonight, as you listen, ask yourself, what would you do if you stood in the center of that vast, haunted hall, alone but for the memories of the countless souls who came before? Would you run? Would you pray? Or would you listen and try to hear what the darkness is trying to say? If you have a story of your own, a brush with the unseen, a memory that will not fade, share it with us. Send your experiences to stories-phpodcast@gmail.com. Your words may help someone else make sense of their own encounter, or remind them that they are not alone in the dark. You can find show notes and support options in the description, and for those who want to delve deeper into the world of Filipino folklore, exclusive content awaits you on Patreon. Follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. We promise, some stories are stranger than fiction. As we close tonight's episode, remember, the past is never as far away as we think. Sometimes it is waiting just beneath our feet, ready to rise at a moment's notice. Sometimes all it takes is a whisper, a chill, a flicker of light in the darkness. History is not dead. It is only waiting for us to listen. Will you be ready when the shadows call your name? Listen to more past and future episodes for journeys into the dark and the unknown. Do not forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share this podcast. Support the podcast financially in ways you can find in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.